79T 2458 Learning Corp Little Red Riding Hood, take one.
Looks like it's one of those mornings. Let's get into it, fellas. This one's going to be a fun one. You're going to like it. Hope you're enjoying your Saturday. Enjoy your coffee. You know the deal. It's actually pretty good as a transition, so let's get you in there. Yeah, one of those mornings, exactly. So, hey, we're going to have a fun one. I was going to talk... It's going to be a twofer. So I'm hosting Rule Zero today. We're going to bring all the boys. I don't know who's going to be there, who's not going to be there. We'll find out at the end. But for topics, I'm going to start with Dalrock. And he's one of those guys in the space that he's been really useful for a lot of guys. He's been around since like 2010. He actually, in my research for this video, he actually corrected some information. I often say that the manosphere is not a thing, and I still stand by that. But the big justification I use is in 2012, Mother Jones, an article, or a little feminist rag, decided to use it to slander all men. So like the idea was like Roosh, Elon, Paul Elam, all the different like male spheres of influence. And they did that too. So that way they can lump everybody together, which is still true. But he was using the term in 2010. So on that note, it looks like I maybe have to go a bit further back than 2012. Is this manosphere in the room right now? Oh, who can know? Who can ever know? All right, let me just adjust my windows here so we get everything lined up, looking nice and pretty. Because this is going to be some boring free domain radio level of ranting into the camera. First time catching this live. I like how every time I see it. Okay, let me quickly get to the super chats and then we'll get started here. So, Wando, €2 super chat. Comments on the Red Pill Nelson Mandela release. No comment. No comment. I don't know, we'll see. I'm going to take a... Like, I realize this whole thing is kind of... Like, it was fun to shit post it and that, but lately it's just kind of becoming such a circus that I'm losing interest in the shit posting. So I'm deleting the tweets that I was on it, and I'm making a real concerted effort, short of the rules, the Red Morning ads, because I love those damn things. I love those damn things. But it's crazy how guys don't really know how the legal system works. They're like, they assume this is like an acquittal. It's like, no, man. All this was technically bail. And they have his passport, and then he has to wait, and then charges will be laid, and then a court case is done, and then the trial period starts. This is like going to be, like, the next year is going to suck for him. So, I don't know. It just feels a little bit tasteless to pile on at this point, although he doesn't seem to care, so whatever. Simply too awesome. €10, 1 cent. Oh, thank you, sir. Thank you so much. $10, 1 pence super chat for great work. Could you collate your best on an episode of You Can Sire But Not Raise Kids? It would be much appreciated. I think actually that's going to be part of the sidebar. I've got to double check. And if not, I'm going to have an additional series once Midwatch is done where I go over like some of the OG members, Whisper, Human Sock Puppet, Red Pill School, Archwinger, all these guys, and kind of have like a new series on it. I don't know how the format's going to go yet, but we'll get there when we get there. Grimlocked, $1.99 super chat. Too much hair to be on free domain radio. Also, a little less, I tend not to agree with the whole genetic determinism thing, so I'm not quite going to be a good free domain. I'm also not going to work with a bunch of morons and get myself canceled, so. Dark Knight Dev, I prefer this C-SPAN to all the CNN RP crap. Oh, dude. Dev is always here spitting facts. Spitting facts, guys. Throw him some love. Anywho. So, let me get these windows going up here. As you can see, like, what's he talking about now? Well, it's going to be something called Threatpoint. That's going to be the starting point. And this is where I'm going to lead the Rule Zero guys to start with. And it's the idea of manipulation. Like, since I've been talking the last year about frame, manipulation's always been a thing. Wives manipulating you, girlfriends manipulating you, your friends, your coworkers, your church, psychology, media. At this point, you should be fairly switched on about the concept of manipulation and how it gets to you. So in this case, I'm going to be applying it to more like red-pilled material. Like, how does this matter as far as relationships? And I think you've heard me say all the time, it's not like, I'm not going to tell guys not to get married, not because I think it's a good idea, but only because if you're just letting somebody tell you what to do on the internet, all you've done is replace Susie Homemaker offering you a whiff if you do what she says, feminine imperative, with 1984 talking head on the fucking screen. And I'm like, it's not useful. So I prefer the term marriage is a bad deal for men. And I think people can hear that and intellectually they can agree with it, but I really do notice there's a trend where people don't map these concepts to their practical lives. And that's kind of where I'm going with this today. So, starting point. Threatpoint. Actually, you know what? In honor of Red Pill Nelson Mandela, let's give him a little shout out. Heck with it.
Ian, what do... Not Ryan Stone. I think he's the most important guy in the world. Ryan Stone. Give a fuck about Ryan Stone. Me and him have gone back and forth. Blah, blah, blah. Ryan Stone does not pass the 6-foot test. He's not even a man. So I don't give a fuck with Ryan Stone.
I don't know why. That still gives me chuckles to this day. It feels like such a long time ago, huh? Anyway, so what the heck is Threatpoint? Well, Threatpoint is this great post that came out by Dalrock back in 2012. So this is 10 years old. Something I want you to keep in mind throughout all this stuff. The stuff I'm showing you guys is about a decade old. And so when you're looking at it, think about how the trend has either increased or decreased over time. And you don't need like a perfect idea of it. Wando, €2 super chat. We know it isn't an acquittal, but low-hanging jokes. You son of a... And so this kind of tacks onto that whole MGTOW talking point, you know? Oh, we talk about divorce theft, which actually means divorce grape, but, you know, whatever. Makes men undesirably hesitant to marry as the impact it has, and he makes a point how it's not so much that. And the goal of, as Rollo would call it, the feminine imperative has never been to get men to go their own way, to scare them away from it. What it's meant to do is to keep men on the plantation, to change, or as he puts it here, where does it go? To redistribute power in a marriage, giving power to the person who wants out, reducing power previously held by the partner, instead interested in preserving the marriage, and changing intrafamilial decisions. So what does that mean? That means, again, I tell you guys all the time, feminism is not an ideology. It's a tactic. It's for women wanting more with less responsibility. And that's it. And it maps to everything perfectly. This doesn't make any sense. The different waves of feminism, you realize it's just it. I want more, and I don't want to have consequences for my actions. And that's on a 10,000 foot top view. That's exactly what it is. See, we're not even talking about plow horses and that. So hold on to your butts. So you got this redistributing power as he goes through. Where is it about? There we go. So these two links here, this one I think is dead now, and this one's like a big economics paper. We're not going to get into that, but the point was there was two feminist economists who were studying, and they did, what's the word they call it for? Advocacy papers. It's kind of like it pretends to be a research paper, but it's more of like a policy statement. I might get the names wrong, but you know what I'm talking about. So the wife's age at the time of divorce, and they're talking about if people were divorcing younger, if women were, or if marriages were younger than that when they're getting divorced, that tends to favor women because they're younger and they have more options to get back and find a new husband. However, if it was men were getting young wives and ditching their old wives to replace with a younger model, you would see the trend of divorcings happening later. And it's pretty clear, at least from the stuff that he presents here, that it's happening younger. Women are divorcing under 30. So that kind of shows you, it's like this whole hand-waving crocodile tears about men are just replacing us with younger models. It's not true. Men are like fiercely loyal. It's a concept called wife goggles, which you may have heard of. If you've never heard of it, it's the practical application of what Rollo refers to as men being the aspirational lovers, or men being the romantics posing as opportunists, and women are the opportunists presenting as romantics. What that means is you start dating a girl. Say you get married, you've been dating this 19-year-old girl. As soon as you fall in love with her, whatever that means to you, you kind of lock that image in your head. That's the girl you see. She could be 40, 2 kids in, stretch marks, gained a couple pounds, whatever. You still see that hot little 19-year-old tart you picked up at the bar that one time. That's wife goggles. And generally speaking, women tend to age pretty poorly. We all know the memes about the wall. And this is kind of, I almost want to say, like nature's defense mechanism against women getting sent to the streets. And it's like a great strategy. If women settle down young, yeah, they can have their man love them through all kinds of hardships, right? For the most part. I mean, sociopaths aside, we're talking center of the bell curve stuff. On the other hand, those things, it's also a one-time thing. Like, you can't get them slapped off your face. And usually that's something like infidelity, extreme hardship, anything you would think of as what the concept's called being zeroed out, or like a complete crushing of a guy's worldview and the loss of love for his wife. Not lust, not desire, like love. The reason that, like, if somebody touches her in the street, you want to punch that guy in the head, like that kind of stuff. So once those get slapped off a guy's face, they're never coming back. And I would argue when you see the cases of men replacing their women with younger models, it's usually because those goggles get slopped off their face. More often than not, you're seeing guys post stories like 80 years old talking about, oh, she's still the same girl that I met, you know? So I know this isn't the most practical, like I'm still trying to lay down terms here so we can get there. So when you see these happening, like the divorces, filing about this, you realize that all of these little laws are all raindrops, and no raindrop thinks it's responsible for the flood. And I find it fascinating because it's not a conspiracy. It's emergent strategy. Like, there's no cabal of evil feminist Illuminati in there somewhere thinking, this is my plan to get us to this point that I want to be. If that was the case, it'd be easy because then it's a villain you can fight. This is actually much more nefarious. It's just women generally have their own sexual strategy. It involves acquiring resources, social capital, food, water, shelter, that kind of thing. A high quality man, whichever she defines it as. It's the subjective nature of it, by the way. It's why I say high quality man with some asterisks. Technically, the drug dealer that she's hot for is a high quality man in her eyes. So to get that stuff, and then in a great relationship outline done by David Clare in Practical Female Psychology, once they land this man, they put him to work, like, get what you want out of the marriage. Heaven forbid, marriage should be something that they want for reasons, incentives. And then as things slowly progress, she starts to fall out of love, becomes naggy, nothing's ever good enough, that sort of thing. PP, $199.99 super chat. Thank you very much, sir. Good morning, all. Always appreciate the wisdom. Oh, don't worry, sir. Don't worry. We're just getting started. We're going to be there. And hey, Allie's in the chat. Are we covering Pulp Fiction today? No, we're covering Pulp Fact. Pulp Fact. Where was I going with this one? Oh, yeah. So and he calls it the betaization process. It's technically the roadmap or the lifespan of every type of relationship. Now, the phases aren't clearly defined. There's a bit of overlap. They tend to be of random distributions of time. Doesn't really matter. Just know that they always follow the same cycle, and that is attaching to the highest quality man they could find. It's called fitness testing. It's not the same as the concept of a shit test or fitness test, but just realize it's as a phase. And then getting him to be vulnerable. That's the idea of securing commitment. Putting him to work. That's the ins and outs of relationships. That's everything from, throwing a baby into her, providing a home, getting working couple, dink stuff. Like, whatever it is that involves a happy, healthy, maintainable marriage is in the putting him to work phase. The next phase, and this is where you kind of get into why this stuff matters, is evolutionary selfishness. And that's where the drive of women, once they get and it's usually when the kid gets to be about 5, when being a father is no longer necessary, but it's good to have. And that's because, kids going to school and that. So you see there's a social element as well as a biological element. Kids are more, autonomous. And that's where girl can't just leave. She has to get the certain social capital. Hey, guys, I'm the victim. He's the abuser. It's also the fact that she has to emotionally detach from what she would consider her hypergamous best option. That's where the nagging starts. That's where the slow whittling down of a guy's defenses. Like, when guys talk about losing frame or she broke my frame, that's the stuff we're talking about. And this is why And again, shameless plug, Praxeology, frame. This is why frame is so important, because you have to internalize this stuff, because for a lot of guys, all of their maintaining frame decisions are conscious choice. And all of these female decisions tend to be instinct. Now, in a battle of attrition, instinct will always win against conscious choice. It will always win against conscious choice. Without exception, it will always win against conscious choice. So keep that in mind. When you see things like Rolo saying, you know, I don't game my wife of 25 years, I am the game. And it sounds goofy and you're like, oh, what a nerd. But no, he's right. It's at the point, like your early stages in your relationship, or even when you're single, are spent making these things a natural part of you. Why? Just be yourself. Yeah, be yourself. If yourself is pretty good at this stuff, you tend to have better outcomes than if yourself never bothered to train. I always hated that be yourself. Everybody's like, just be yourself. Like, dude. And I get, like, what if yourself is a piece of shit? Like, what other human endeavor do you think has to come naturally without any practice or any skill sets? Riding a bike, practicing a skill, learning to play music. Everybody acknowledges there's a skill set to it. There's training involved, there's practice, and eventually it becomes natural. Except for sex. Feminine imperative, what are you going to say? Right, PP? I always love it. I have to say PP every time in this thing like a 6-year-old. So the natural instinct is the disassociation. She has to emotionally distance herself from her hypergamous best option, and usually this comes in the form of nagging, of bitching, of constant testing of a man's frame, and then the more he fails it, the faster this phase goes. It turns out a girl can butt up against this phase a lot, and a guy has a strong enough frame. He keeps himself looking good, in shape, has expectations, keeps her more on the defense than on the offense, kind of like, oh, dude, I better get my act together and keep this guy in my life. You can actually bounce back and forth between this phrase, but it's like a constant battle against somebody's emotions. And I don't mean battle as in like, oh, it's not worth the juice. I mean battle as in the same thing as making sure you don't starve is always a battle to make sure there's food on the table, you know? But the final phase is self-determination. And that's, the cheating, the separation, the getting the new husband, all that stuff. And a lot of what I'm talking about in here comes in these last phases. So when you see, and I'll get back to the article here. So that's more about giving the power to the person that does it. That's not the part I'm looking for. The part I'm looking for that's not the happiness size. There she is, right here. Okay. The part that they're getting at the end here is they like heads on spikes. Heads on spikes is a useful tool to get what you want in these marriages. So what do I mean by that? You take an acrimonious divorce. You take the Brad Pitt, Angelina Jolie. You could think of any examples, even in just a local example. Everybody here has enough friends. If you're old enough, you've seen at least one of your friends go through a divorce. You've seen multiple friends go through a divorce. And there's always the one, parents, friends, family, whatever, that has been an absolute gong show. The wife is suing for custody. The guy's spending all of his money because he wants to see his kids, tuck them in at night and stuff like that. And just financially wrecked. Kids go to therapy. All the worst case scenario stuff you can see happening has happened. Now, the purpose of that, and the reason that you're always going to see that paraded around on TV, that's why I don't know who's replacing Oprah now. Oprah, Dr. Phil, whoever's in there now, Ricky Lake, any of the daytime TV, soccer mom, power hour stuff is always about these acrimonious divorces. Oh my God, this cost him millions of dollars. She stabbed him and blah, blah, blah. And he lost his kids and he has to be homeless in a shelter. And the MGTOWs are encouraging it too, where they're like, yeah, dude, everybody tells their horrible divorce stories. Obviously, it's self-selected for those who have horrible divorce stories. And I'm not going to sit here and quibble over what percentage of them are acrimonious versus not. The point of this isn't percentages and stats and spreadsheets. The point of this is, from a manipulation perspective, you see in these acrimonious situations has a cooling effect. And this is what these economists found in that article that I was referencing up here too, is that the more examples you see, the more it shifts the Overton window in your head that women are greedy, evil, manipulative whores that are just going to take your money and stab you and take your kids and leave you homeless in a gutter. And the effect of that is that in your own relationships, you act more subservient because you're terrified of that. It's actually, I would say it's the first red-pilled mental model that existed. And I've talked about this before, so if you're older to the channel, you probably already know where I'm going with this. It's called the emasculation paradox. Hawaiian libertarian Keone Galt talked about it in 2008 with his seminal article, Game is Red Pill. Yeah, I'm accepting cookies. And what that meant there is that all these guys are terrified of their wives doing that to them. And so they act more submissive and subservient. You know, happy wife, happy life. That's where that comes from. Happy wife, happy life is the inverse way of saying if she's mad at me, mama's going to burn the house to the ground. Right? Well, the result isn't like, don't think of it that way. Freddie's talking about the result is elimination from the gene pool. No. That would imply that you're the center of the focus here. And that's what I think a lot of guys miss. They still can't get outside their own like martyred narcissistic idea. You're not a factor. From the girl's perspective, this is all solipsism. What does this mean for me? How does this affect me? It's literally them. You're just a tool in this. When you're in love, you're the greatest guy on earth and she loves everything about you and she could never do this. She would never do this, ever. And all these examples, those are just broken and damaged women. But then when she feels like she's doing it, and she's like, oh, now she's justified. Well, I wasn't like that, but I was abusive. It's not even that I wasn't like that before. It's that she forgets all that previous stuff ever happened. It's like Schrodinger's AWOL. But that's the problem, is that guys don't do themselves any favors by acquiescing to this. And that's the emasculation paradox. It turns out the best and only way for you to avoid these hyper acrimonious examples is to not submit. And by making it in your mind more likely that these things will happen, you'll actually make them less likely to happen. There's no guarantee. I mean, some girls just go feral, right? Yeah, shadow matriarchy. And I don't understand why people keep calling this a conspiracy, because it's not. It's not a conspiracy. Everybody's been saying since the beginning, sexual strategies between men and women are adversarial, and on a macro level they are. Here's the macro level. The divorce industry, the scaremongering, the get back on the plantation stuff, the cooling effect, Threatpoint. That's why these things exist. And the first part to beating a strategy is to understand a strategy. I'm going to quickly take a detour here to give you an example of that. Anti-strategy strategies. Men and women, our sexual strategies are adversarial. What does he mean by that? That means if you look at, 10,000 people, 10,000 men, 10,000 women, you see the things they do, and it looks like it's people that are combative. But individually, you look at men and women, and they seem mostly cooperative. Oh, wow, two people got together. It's a great little couple. They're doing their thing. That's awesome. So you got to keep those thoughts in your head. Macro versus micro. Individual level, we're great. Polarization, men and women are better off together, which is true. It just turns out from an evolution perspective, over, hundreds of thousands of iterations of men and women dating and having sex and having babies and dying off, that adversarial nature has created a positive individual benefit. Because if it wasn't, those guys would die off, and then the next generation guys would act differently, and those ones would, take over. It's just a mathematics thing. Think of it the same as like how the legal profession has to be adversarial. Defense, prosecutor, they got to fight like rabbits, but in the end, they make a better legal system. I mean, we could argue about that with the whole Ricky Vaughn thing, but I was going to throw that at the end for a little bit of fanciness. So anti-strategy strategies. In this case, men's strategy is to use their physicality to influence the world around them. They hunt to get meat so they can eat. They build things so they can live in comfort. And they make fancy and nicer things and produce a surplus in order to attract a mate. Women don't have that ability to physically manifest the world in the same way men do. So what do? They get good at manipulation. And one of the easiest primitive forms of manipulation is just flat out lying. Women lie to men. Yes, it's your baby. Yes, this, yes, that. Of course I love you. There's nobody else. Nothing happened. Now here's the thing. So the men that fell for those lies would get, cucked, generally speaking. And we're talking like cavemen here. Don't think this is like the 1950s or some shit. They get cucked. Other men raise kids. Those kids end up moving on. So the ones that were more susceptible to lies would die off over generations, and the ones that were able to detect it better would thrive. So then what happens? Now you get a bunch of guys who are really good at detecting deception, and these lion-ass hoes end up not having higher quality kids, and those kids die off, and so they kind of whittle down. So now the arms race has begun. So women get a strategy where they become better liars, and men have a better strategy of detecting lies better. Obviously, it works both ways. Men lie to women too, and that's a whole other topic. There's always going to be one guy. Well, what about if guys do it? It's like, I'm not fucking men. I don't care about what men do. If you are, figure it out. Do a podcast. I'll gladly shout it out. The latest iteration of this, and this is actually kind of funny when you think of like, oh, women are emotional. They can't think. She says, I don't take her out to dinner anymore. We went out to dinner yesterday. Like stuff like that. Self-deception is the currently primary method of lying as manipulation for women. Turns out, Jerry, it's not a lie if you believe it. So girls actually tell themselves the lie, convince themselves of the lie, and then talk about the lie as if it's true. The benefit of this, and this is kind of where we are now, the benefit of this is that you always can tell if a girl's lying to you. You look, something about her mannerisms changes. Maybe she's a bad liar. Maybe she's a good one. Maybe there's some things in the environment you don't understand. But when she believes that lie, there's no tell. You can look at her and she'll 100% with sincerity say something that you know is a lie. And she should know it's a lie, but she doesn't know it's a lie. And it's not always just about cucking. Sometimes it's easy stuff. Have you seen my thing? I didn't touch it. It's like, I didn't ask if you touched it. I just asked where it was. I don't know what you're talking about. And then you find it in her purse. You're like, oh, there's my keys. Little things like that. That's almost 40 cuck articles. So braver. Yeah, so what's the anti-strategy on this? Well, from the red pill, they actually came up with a good one. Ignore what she says, watch what she does. Because it turns out, even when you're deluding yourself in order to believe a manipulative lie, the actions are the things that have consequences. If she wants to get married and she lied to you to get married, she still wants to get married. Actions are there. The actions are always honest. Again, what everybody is saying. That's, what's his name? Joe Navarro. Fun guy. I actually kind of met him back in 2019 at the convention that shall not be named. But yeah, he was a fun guy to talk to. And he was one of those great points he brought up is that body language can't lie because it's accessing a different part of the brain. The manipulative part is like frontal lobe and the emotional centers. But actions in your body are way more limbic system. So more often than not, and that's why when people try to convince themselves, it's so their limbic system comes on board. But again, the ultimate actions always get there. So that's the anti-strategy. And so back to the threat point, that's what we're getting at here. When you have a divorce industry that puts a head on a spike of an acrimonious divorce of a guy losing everything, celebrity divorce, whatever, and your first instinct is to acquiesce to your wife's or your girlfriend so that way she doesn't try to do that too, or because you're afraid of abandonment and all this stuff, just realize you're playing into the game. You're buying into the lie. Stand fast, stand firm. It's one of those things, and it comes across. Another way of expressing it is where guys say, abundance mentality. That's the anti-strategy for men. Abundance. Have abundance. The idea that even if your wife goes feral, leaves you, takes half your money, takes your kids, the attitude you have is, if you have a lot of money, I have a lot of money, I'll be fine. And I made it once, I can make it again. There's a lot of entrepreneurs that make a couple million, lose it all, and then make a couple million again. Now, if you don't have any money, and you're kind of broke, you're like, well, I didn't really lose anything, then did I? So it's nothing really to cry about. So either way, then you fight for it if you want to. I'm not telling you what to do as a strategy. I'm talking to you about the mental model that you use to cope with this stuff, or to manage it, or to make better decisions based around it. However you want to word it. This channel has a monopoly on IQ in the sphere. Dear God, I hope not. I'm wearing asshole glasses today specifically to be anti-intellectual. I hate smart people. They drive me nuts. It's all redder stuff. But appreciate that, Ali. Appreciate that. All right. Where was I going with this one? Oh, yeah. Anti-strategy strategies. So yeah, you stand up for yourself because you can't be afraid of her leaving. If she leaves, there's nothing you can do about it because that's Her mind, her choice. You have no hard power to stop her. You have no hard power to tell her no and have her listen to you. All you have is soft power. And the beauty of soft power is it ties into what's going to be Praxeology Volume 2, Dread, luxury branding. Turns out women are very good. Women be shopping. Women be shopping. And the idea there is that women really latch onto luxury signals as like a social thing. It's instinctual. And for a guy who looks like he doesn't need them and isn't willing to be manipulated by I'm going to leave you and that fear of abandonment stuff, that's actually a very attractive quality to have. And if you remember, about 15 minutes ago, I was talking about how the phases of the relationship, the putting him to work, the healthy stage of a relationship, and the evolutionary selfishness, that the nagging test, the constant pushing of boundaries always happen at that little demarcation line. The point of the abundance, the point of the emasculation paradox, the point of standing up for yourself and not letting the cards fall where they are and not worrying about her leaving and not worrying about losing money in divorce, is that it's an incentive not to go there. It's not a guarantee, it's an incentive. And so that helps you get the best outcomes for yourself. Now, the way I've described it here is very boring and bland and dull, but in reality, all that means is if I don't put up with her shit, she's more likely to still respect me in the morning. It's the easiest way to put it for somebody. Anti-intellectual avatars. Yeah, it's amazing how that gets turned on its head when you do leave. Well, I wasn't going to bring up that, but so you'll see examples of guys, and I have a current example, but I'm going to use an old one. Wife was divorcing. Same acrimonious scenario I was talking about before, submitted to his wife. Why won't you fuck me? She's like, fuck you. After the divorce, he kind of switched a thing in his head. He's like, fuck it. I'm going to go date. I'm going to do whatever. Whatever happens, happens. And he's fighting with the lawyers, and she's fighting with the lawyers, and the divorce is already settled. At this point, they got a settlement that she can live with, which was pretty bad. And then the lawyer's like, all right, you guys, take some time, sit in your office, do your thing, and sign these papers, and we'll come back. We're going to go grab a coffee or whatever. So they leave, and now it's him and his ex-wife in there. And from what he puts it, she had a boyfriend that she was dating. Like, that's the reason they broke up, because of cheating, right? And that didn't work out. So she starts thinking this is all a mistake. Long story short, starts giving him a blowjob in the lawyer's office in front of the divorce paperwork, the finalization of the divorce paperwork. And I guess he was so... It's funny, too. So that's like a mate retention strategy. It's called hysteric bonding. Not on topic. We'll get to that later. Send a super chat if you really want to hear about it. He kind of got disgusted. He's like, I can't believe this. We went through a 2-year acrimonious divorce, spent like $20,000. Life has been hell. She cheated on me, and all she had to do all this time was what she's doing now, that it's too late, and I got my foot out the door. And so he's like, yeah, so I came in her mouth, signed the papers, went on about my day. Don't care, got laid. Made me laugh. I thought it was like, I get it. Everybody's like, it's horribly misogynist, but it's a funny fucking story, and it's great. It's like, it was those old Married with Children episodes. Like the first 6 episodes, it was always Al Bundy getting his ass beat. But then there was always that one in there where Al wins in the end, and you were like, man, that was worth. That was worth. Thank you, Christopher. I like that William Feitkin 70s look. I have to learn who that is. Yeah, I had that happen with one of my ex-girlfriends. Thankfully, no divorce papers. Hilarious how it works. It is. And it's weird because a lot of guys still won't catch on to the idea. The idea there is abundance, outcome independence, that ability to stand up for yourself. Like, it takes that much acrimony from a woman to finally get a guy to check out. And then when he does, that's when he should learn this skill, that 1 foot out the door, that being slightly checked out, is the anti-strategy. All this feminine imperative stuff. The ability, the willingness, and the underlying, I don't even want to say threat, because it's not a threat. It's like the underlying reality of it is, if you're not acting right, I will find somebody who will. And I will find somebody who will. It's not an empty threat. It's not an empty gesture. It's a certainty, a mathematical, emotional, marriage, divorcing certainty. That if you're not blowing me, I can get that one to blow me. And that's why, and there's, on some level, women know this. Pause that.
I don't usually post pictures of my kids online, but they're infants and you can barely see them, so, you know, it's fine. But a YouTuber named Ryan Stone tweeted, showing off the F trophies for clout. So the babies are trophies that I'm showing off. It's perhaps not a surprise that a picture of a proud father would be so upsetting to the sort of man who clearly never had one.
I love that goofy bastard. Hey, the Daily Wire on the newest thing is all about book burning and censorships. That's pretty cool. The roar after he says Rhinestone, it shows your face, always gets me. Yeah, me too. So soccer mom anger. Everybody notices, like, dude, it was like a thing a couple weeks back on Twitter, which it's a good example here, but I mean, you don't need it. Just talk to friends of divorced families and see what happens. It's the idea that girls are terrified of men leaving them for younger women, which we've already talked about right in the beginning. The numbers don't show that. That is not what's happening. It's women when they're younger and still have options leaving their men and getting a payout. So why are women so scared about something that's factually untrue? Because of that. That's the hypergamous like fear, is that if he has an option to replace me, I have to act better to keep him. They don't know this consciously. They just know it's a feeling. Like something about that feels wrong. And they don't know how to articulate it. So what do? They just yell at guys. You son of a bitch. How dare you? Younger women is like, you notice how they blame everything on being a pedo? Any 30-year-old man that dates a 20-year-old girl is a pedo. It's like technically by the law, I believe it's under 18, 17, 16, something like that. Although technically, like and then there's an argument about the different types. Like, look, legal age of consent. There's the line set there. I don't care to argue it. Yeah, is it right? Is it wrong? Not really concerned. Not my hill to die on. All I'm saying is right now, 18 and above. If they're able to do porn without parental consent, good enough for this argument. But that's why they're terrified, and that's why there's this soccer mom anger. And that is... Oh, did I put it in here? Did I? One sec. We're going to go back through our other things. Not this one. Not this one. Ah, this one, yes. How the Feminine Imperative Just Happens. Actually, I might use that as the title. I think that's a much nicer one than Soccer Mom Anger. I'm doing the timestamps here so you guys can see what's going on. It's a nice example that Dalrock brings up back in 2012, where it's just like Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts going at a thing. The girls cut in line at the buffet table, and the headmaster is like, guys, let the girls go first. And then the girls very passively just kind of let it happen. And then somebody's like, well, that's not fair. Why should they get to cut out in front? So somebody else makes the idea, well, how about this? If the guys have to be subservient to girls and let them go first in the meal line, how about they do something subservient back? Then it's equal, then it's fair, and everybody's fine. How about the girls do like set the tables for everybody? They serve the men, but they get to grab food first. And then, where is the line I want to steal from this one? The reality is that women's passivity is far more superficial than it appears. Vox Day recently explained why women tend to be passive-aggressive. Passive-aggressive behavior is an intentional attack on another individual made with at least some degree of plausible deniability concerning the attack, the intent, or the target. The reason is because the passive-aggressive individual wants to be able to attack somebody without giving their target a justification for striking back. Should he be questioned, or should she be questioned, the passive-aggressive attacker will deny they were making an attack, that it was intended, or that the person was obviously, in fact, the target. It's a perfectly reasonable conflict strategy for women who are on average smaller, weaker, slower, less intelligent than men. I'm not here to argue whether any of that's true, just focus on the dynamic. I hate how I always have to tell people to focus on the point and not get distracted by details, but it's the internet and that's how things work. You forgot to put an apostrophe there. You forgot to shut the hell up, sir. And this is where he talks about, like, what happens if you just, let's have the girls' play setting and that. And here's the beauty of feminine imperative, like, in action. Girls were very passive about fairness and fair play and all that stuff when things are going in their favor. So when it comes to men being chivalrous, you know, as they understand it, that sort of thing, women are very passive. Oh, that kind of sucks. Oh, okay, thank you for holding the door for me. And I get it, these are small examples, but it's to help articulate an idea. But in the case here, again, I'm stealing this line. At this point, the reality of the feminine imperative will become evident, because while the girls were seemingly passive when everything was going their way, any deviance from this will be met with emotional outbursts. Whoever proposes either true equality or simple reciprocity will become the object of great irrational anger, and at this point, the passivity turns to aggression. While the girls and their mothers won't know why they're so angry, they will just know that whoever proposed a thing is just a terrible person. And that's it. That's how it happens. Yeah, so women are divorcing men when they're generally younger and able to secure a new man. That sucks. But, I mean, the heart wants what it wants. There's nothing stopping them. If you were a better man, you can keep her. Women are very passive about this. That's why there's tons of TikToks of chicks like, even Pearlie's talking about how divorce is bad for men and blah, blah, blah. Okay, it's fine. But if you want to have a reciprocity, okay, so that's fine. You can divorce for any reason, no fault divorce, that's fine. Older guys, any older guy that gets divorced or has divorce thrust upon him, starts dating a younger girl, again, reciprocity, irrational anger. And that's where you get soccer moms. They don't know what's going on. They just know, dude, the idea that men can leave us and get younger women is just abhorrent. You're an evil man. This is pedo stuff and blah, 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 blah. And this is why you can't listen to this stuff. You can't take it seriously. Yeah, some women make very good, logical critiques about this, and it makes perfect sense, and you're absolutely right. Oh my God, it does sound horrible. But that's the manipulation. That it makes sense is why it resonates with men at all. They tap into, it's what I call frame shifting, or what physician rehab has actually got me to call it dynamic frame, as like a manipulation. It appeals to your need for patterns. You like it when the world is consistent, when everything is applied equally, like laws in nature. Guys are big on that stuff. So when girls start mentioning something, they're tapping into your need for pattern recognition in order to do the things that they want. That's womanese, the correct combination of words and phrases to get you to do what they want. And in this case, what do they want? They want female strategy to be successful and male strategy to be unsuccessful. They don't know they want it. It's a subconscious thing. But the instincts that have been developed in humans over hundreds of thousands and millions of years, and however long, or 6,000 years if you're from the Bible Belt, it's all designed, everything for me, nothing for you. And that's why there's no such thing as feminism as an ideology. It's just a tactic. And this is one of those ways it plays out. Women leaving men when they're early, and you go girl, and everything's great. And then men trying to leave later on when they can, and women being angry about that. Granted, we don't. But again, this is why you just can't listen to this sort of stuff. And I hate how I'm sitting here running my mouth for, God knows, how long has it been now? Like 40, 50 minutes? 45 minutes of telling you guys why marriage is a bad deal for men, talking about the overlying strategies that people have, the adversarial nature of male and female dynamics, just to tell you guys the proper strategy out of this is to ignore it and go to the fucking gym. There's your 100% IQ take. Learn all of this stuff so you can promptly forget it and never talk about it again. Never argue with a girl about it. Because if you're arguing with a girl about it, all she knows is that sounds creepy and I must make you sound like a pedo in front of everybody so everybody gets on the plantation. That's how people get on the plantation, through negotiation, through communication. Communication is the worst thing for men because we suck so much at it. And women have nothing but time, and they have like fight or flight responses on these arguments. And this is the same thing, like, dude, if somebody kind of wants to fight and another guy thinks he's fighting for his life, who do you think's going to win that fight, all things being equal? I guarantee you it's that guy. So you just have to, and it's why being flippant and aloof is such a superpower and a dark triad trait. It's just not caring is a superpower. It's the same thing about the emasculation paradox. You guys know all of this stuff now. The MGTOWs, they sit in their basements and fuck their sex dolls. Everybody knows this. But everybody loves to fight about it and argue about it because at the end of the day, I want women to understand how bad it is for me. And I want them to tell me that they're going to do better. And they're sorry. And they won't and they can't because they don't think they're doing anything wrong because they technically aren't. It's just the way that they're wired. And when you think about this, and it's always about men should love, I wouldn't say women as a group, but like love a woman for what she is, not what you want her to be. This is an example of it. She is going to be solipsistic. She is going to be selfish. If you give her enough of your frame and enough submission, she will take you to the cleaners. She will. And she has to, because she's not strong enough to hunt deer. That's how she's built. But once you know that, you can love her for what she is. When your wife starts getting cranky, you can tell her to shut the fuck up, sit the fuck down, have yourself a coffee, leave me the fuck alone, to go out to the gym. I'll be back in an hour. Hopefully by then you're over your period or you're PMSing. And you come back and you don't hate her for it. She's just hungry. She's just tired. It's just that time of the month. I broke my leg and now she's like looking at her hypergamous best option and like waging whether it's worth it. And I'll tell you right now, it is. I still remember that during my military time when I got the full Tate treatment. I guess Tate got the full Ryan treatment is the best way to put it. Yeah, I remember that. My girlfriend got really I guess I'd call her wife back then. Anyways, really ornery, really bitchy. Like same thing with that roadmap. I saw that. And I remember at one point I just sat there and I just had enough. And I can't even, this was almost like an accidental red pilling moment. It's like, look, this stuff sucks right now. I'm dealing with some shit. I'm not a fan of it, and I get it. But I will be better. And when I am better, I will not forget this stuff. So you can either act right or hit the fucking bricks. Something to that effect, right? Started acting better. Awesome. Wonderful times. And it turns out, yeah, it's not like she was turning into a bad person. It was literally just a test. She didn't know it was a test. I didn't know it was a test. It's just we're wired for these kind of tests. It's another reason why in Praxeology Volume 1 Frame, available in fine bookstores that are called Amazon today, link in the description, it's why in there I mentioned I don't know if a guy can fully have a frame without a girl in his life. It's not because you need them for it, it's just because there's that testing. There's that constant buffeting of like female nature. And it's, yeah, you can hang out with the boys, but boys are very camaraderie and there's a whole different set of skills for that for sure. But there's just something about a chick that would step on you when you're down and you being able to navigate that without losing who you are and what it makes you and your vision for the future and what your expectations are for those around you. And to keep all that there when the chaos of women is buffeting against you, which is my Peterson thing, that works, that no other person can do. So yeah. But I mean, I can't argue that when the juice isn't worth the squeeze. Well, it's like, you want to get better at squeezing? You just need more juice. But again, this is I don't want to preach. I don't want to tell you guys what you do. I hate the idea of anybody in the red pill telling you what to do. I'm explaining a concept. You apply this to your life any way you want. I have no problems with a guy if he's like, you know what? I don't want that strengthening thing. I want an easy life of ignoble ease and just not dealing with it. That's fine. If you want to go your own way, go. But don't bitch about it afterwards. That's all I'm saying. Don't bitch about how whammon ain't shit. It's like you went your own way. You decided, instead of Atlas saying I wanted stronger shoulders, not a lighter load, you decided for a lighter load. Don't get mad that the load isn't worth lifting. You could have been strengthening yourself. At that point, mad respect. Enjoy your fuck doll, sir. Your AI fuck doll. Hopefully its 6 fingers don't hurt you too bad. It's like, they call it the shocker. Remember the shocker where it's like 3 in the pink and 1 in the stink? But with like the 6-finger AI girls, it'll be like 1 for your pooper and the rest for, you know, the grip strength or something. I don't know. There's a joke in there somewhere. I can't figure it out. I'm wearing the asshole glasses. What do you expect? Con Savage, $24.99 super chat. Ooh, 3 installments at $24.99. You too can red pill yourself. Authors who read their own audiobook are the heroes we need. There are the ones who know what points to stress and how to deliver it vocally. The book is great. Thank you. Appreciate it, sir. I really do. But yeah, I agree. There's something about, I'm not a huge audiobook fan, but I've listened to 2 types. I've listened to ones where they get a good radio announcing speaking person to read it, and the one where they get the author to read it. And the author ones are just better. And it's almost like, I almost want to think it's because the authors aren't great radio speaking voice people, you know? It offers that little bit of, it's like how MP3s have a little bit of static in it, or a YouTube video looks not professionally designed. I think there's something about that lack of professional polish makes it a better experience. And you're right with the emphasis in that too. The emphasis on the right syllables. Yeah, space memes here. I seriously doubt any woman could push me off my square when my square is my art writing career. Feel plant strong. Or feel plant too strong. Like I said, it's good to know. It's good to assume, but there's only one way to know. I always try to remember that too. Everybody who got divorced always thought that they would never get divorced. So we're going to move on here. Let's give you a little delay. Let's throw some... Who are we going to make fun of? Oh, let's do some T-Rex Army stuff. Don't forget the Digital Ryan channel, by the way.
Baby, I love you! Baby!
You want to tell me why the majority of people that voted yes, I can be submissive are men?
Just want to talk a little bit about why I love women.
And the majority that said no are women? I would love y'all to ponder that for a fucking second.
I love how they always make sure, by and large, they shower the feminine energy that girls put out. It's magnetic.
You think I can be submissive? You
I adore it.
That fucking guy. I can't... How do you not, man? That guy... Never-ending stream of awesome. I really hope he gets off of that January 6th nonsense. Yeah. Well, no, Savage. See, yeah, you guys stop listening like a spurg. And I don't mean that to insult you. That's literally the topic of like an Whisper article, which is somewhere down the line. Don't just immediately take this to an extreme. I didn't say you can't work on your frame. I just said I don't think it's possible to have a strong frame, like to have frame 100% proper without women testing you. It's anything. It's like, look at this the same way as I would say, I don't think it's possible to work out without a gym and weights. Does that mean I can't do body weight exercises? It's like, slow down, man. Can't never go full tard. Most guys do, and I get it. But we're here to fix that. And you seem like a nice fellow, so I'm sure you'll be fine. So the next part is more grim news for counselors hoping to hop off the train at the last minute. This one is actually one of the few that I knew about beforehand because one of the comments in here is from the seminal red-pilled essay Michael's Story. If you guys have never heard of Michael's Story, it's about a guy who was going to college, made a virgin, was doing the best that he could to be the greatest husband ever for girls, and they were just out there in college getting drunk and riding dick. And at one point, he has a moment of clarity and honesty where he goes, just so you know, girls, us good boys like me aren't going to want to marry up you slutty college chicks. You can't have your cake and eat it too. So I hope it's worth the cats and the cat litter. And the girls looked over at him, and the one, in a moment of honesty that he needed, not the one that he wanted, Dark Knight, said, not only am I going to eat my cake, I'm going to have it with sprinkles and chocolate milk. And she's absolutely right. Every girl who's like hyper promiscuous, every slutty woman on the earth, they will all get what's coming to them. They will get a husband. They will get a kid. Maybe both. Maybe one, maybe the other. Everything that they want in life, they will receive, because for every guy out there with his revenge fantasy of a girl getting her comeuppance because, 6 dicks means an eternity in hell, there is 10 guys out there who's like, I can save her. I can save her. And so you're really just fighting against human nature. No matter how many dicks a girl's taken, there's always a thirsty guy out there who thinks, one more can do it. I can do this. She can lie to men. Oh, I'm a virgin. Dude, I remember that. One of the Matts, the ones I worked with, the one with his fiancée in Fuck Files. Also great book at fine stores called Amazon, available today. He came into work, it's like, oh, dude, I found this virgin at the Carlton Club, which if you guys don't know, that's like the Sailor bar. Sailor and the Diversity bar. I guess I'll put it kindly. And everybody kind of was like, are you stupid? Like, no, man, she told me. All right, fair enough. A couple months later, they're dating, they're having fun. One of the other guys from the other ship's like, oh, yeah, I remember her. Yeah, we slept together. He's like, what? Thought you were a virgin. Turns out she wasn't a virgin. She's like had 3 guys before him. He's like, oh, okay. So not technically, I mean, it was just a blowjob. It didn't count. It was just like, there's only been 3 of them beforehand. So she's still a virgin. I'm like, all right, whatever. And it was just like a constant case of a guy lying to himself because this was the best he could do. There was nothing wrong with her. She looked trailer park, but she was thin, nice hair, acted feminine, pretty fun. Too fun. I think that's the problem. Yeah, her virginity respawned. Yeah. So for every one of you, no offense to the guy, for every one of you turd-flinging monkeys thinking about girls getting their just comeuppance, there's like 10 Matts It's like, oh, she said she was a virgin. I love her to death. But that's not why I'm here. I'm not here to tell you your revenge fantasies are stupid. That's off topic. What I'm here to show you is the landscape. So you know how we all kind of understand too that women don't really care about the consequences of their actions if it affects anybody else as long as I'm getting mine, right? I don't think many people actually read this one. More grim results for women getting off the carousel at the last minute. So what he's showing here is percent of non-white, non-Hispanic women never married by the year and age, 25 to 49. And you see this and, oh my God, this means like young girls are never married and that's going up. But it looks like the older generations are pretty stable. And he goes, no, you're looking at the data wrong. When you look at this, when you look at this cohort here is technically this cohort here. We'll go to the yellows because it actually makes, I think he does it here. There we go. This actually makes it a little clearer. So in 2007, these women here that are 35 were, actually, you know what, let's go back, okay, 2000 to 2010. There we go. So these 13.3% of women that are aged 35 to 39 who have never been married are these women right here in 2000. So you see here, 13.3% versus 17.8. So 17.8, it's like 18% or 12%. Let's just do fat numbers, doesn't matter. That means a third of the girls who were single here got married and settled down. 2/3 of them did not. Now, the point he makes here is if you notice, so what you always have to do is think these ones here are technically these ones here on the new chart. So the 2012 or the 2002, and he was noticing it's going up. So in this case, 15% of the women that are 35 to 39 never married, still single, spinsters, right? You go back to them at 30 to 34 or 20 to 24, or wait, no, 30 to 34, yeah. 19%. Now the gap is closing, and that's the problem. As this thing goes up, you're going to start to see more women. There. See, this is where he makes the point. These ones here are those ones there. So from 18% to 11%. Now 18% to 15%. This means that girls that hit 30, it's approaching a singularity, where when a girl hits 30, if she hasn't been married, if she hasn't settled down, if she hasn't gotten common law, family and all that stuff, the odds are becoming increasingly certain that she won't. Add to that the number of them is going up. 18 to 25, numbers are going up. Does he have another chart here? And the only thing that makes this chart look any like plausible at all is that Asian women are crushing it. See this? Black women, not so much, but Asian women crushing it. And I always kind of that as a cheeky joke. Is that why guys have like this Asian fetish? Is because they seem to be the ones that aren't divorcing in that? Are they too slow? Is there something fundamentally different? Who cares? But that's the point. So here's the thing. When you watch content creators talking about this stuff, they refer to it and they're missing the point as a revenge fantasy. Look at this, boys. Just like you said, those chicks aren't marrying. They're not getting their come up because they can't have their cake and eat it too. It's not the takeaway from it. The takeaway from it is you have to understand that if you're going to settle down with a girl and you want to stay together, getting a girl under 30 might make sense. But if you don't have a desire to settle down, if you just want to have fun and play the field has never been broader. Now, I don't know if these women are, I wanted to settle down, but I couldn't, or if I never wanted to settle down. Is it a good thing? It all depends how you look at it. I'm not here to argue that. If it's girls that are getting their revenge, I wanted to settle down, I couldn't find a man. Then that's 25% of women that are absolutely miserable, which would kind of explain the voting patterns lately for people that are just destroying the world. But if it's the case that these women never wanted to marry, don't want to get married, don't want to have families, or do want to have families and just don't want to keep a man around, then for them, life couldn't be any better. It's impossible for us to know the difference. Like, how are we going to know? There's two reasons we'll never know. One, women lie. So if you ask them, are you happy with where you're at? Of course they're going to say yes. Or they're going to bitch about being miserable when they shouldn't. When they're actually not too bad off. There's that Dino Nuggies girl. 25-year-old married to a 47-year-old man. Big, huge ring on her finger, married, nice house, it's all clean. She bitches about, oh, he's like 47 and he provides me the greatest life and he's hot as fuck, but he made me go to the store to get him some Dino Nugget chicken fingers. And everybody's like, that bitch. I'm like, she sounds pretty happy to me. But she's sitting there bitching and complaining. So yeah, if you were to get a stat about happiness, she would count as a miserable chick. But she's not miserable. She's just bitching for clout. Yeah, love me some revenge porn. So it's impossible to know if this is good or bad. And I argue it's not even worth the time trying to figure it out. And then everybody's like, well, just pick a narrative that works well for you. And that's the thing. Half the guys look at this and think, yeah, fuck that bitch. She's getting what she deserves. Half of guys look at this, and I call it the Kate effect, look at it and going, good. Finally, nobody-ass men aren't getting these women. I'd argue, who cares? What's in it for you? And in this case, if you're like Rob, he's like, what is he? How old is Rob? Like 47, 48, something like that? And he's sitting there and he's sleeping with 30-year-olds and he's having a blast. For him, it's great. The field couldn't be better. All these 30-year-olds are single, and single means available. 51. Yeah, there you go. 51. Sleeping with girls 20 years is younger. Jesus, guys, you're making, by the end of this podcast, he's going to be like 70. 38, 50, 51, 55, 76. So he's enjoying the shit out of it. And then for other guys, who's the latest? Oh, Allie. Yeah, Allie and her hubby there. It's Tom, I think, isn't it? What happened to him? He's in his late 40s and she's like 25. Bam! Got a girl under 30, knocked up, pregnant, family. Boom! Everybody's winning out of this. That's the argument I'd say here. Look at this. What do I do knowing these things that I know? And I hate statistics, but that's the point. Is this fake, what I'm talking about? Probably. But as long as you're making better decisions, who cares if what I'm saying is true or not, right? So yeah, if you want to get fun, play the field, totally date girls in their 30s. If you want to settle down, have a family, totally try to settle down with a girl in her 20s. I mean, sleep with whoever. Yeah, except for the bitter mid-30-year-old women, Ryan, they're not winning. Won't you think about them, mate? Yeah. I guess for me, I got to lump that in, and I know Weimar Please has set me up for this one, but yeah, I'd lump that into like a, well, that sounds like a you problem. Reminds me in Canada right now. So if you guys don't know, we have a horrible housing crisis that's like worse than anything the States has ever seen. Accidental millionaires are being brought up here because of inflation and foreign investment. Nobody's living anywhere, but the prices are insane. Anyways, the Bank of Canada had to raise interest rates, and now a whole bunch of like people who took out giant home equity loans bought like 4 or 5 rental properties, and then COVID hit. And then renter agreements changed to the point that renters can basically squat in a place for 2 years and you can't kick them out. So everybody's losing money. And then on top of that, they added a couple basis points to the interest rate. And now people end up being underwater on like multiple homes. And they're bitching for the government as a bailout. And that's exactly how I look at angry middle-aged women on this one. It almost sounds like this is the kind of thing you should have concerned yourself about 10 years ago. Like, dude, I'm not stupid. You see the way real estate is jumping here. It's like 50% year over year. I'm like, that's not going to last. Interest rates are going to rise at some point. So the best thing you can do is set up your mortgage. So that way you can have an interest rate of 5% and not flinch. And that's what we did. We locked our... Why'd you guys lock your mortgage in? You could have a variable... Like, look, the potential of losing $100 a month on this mortgage today is much better than losing the $500 a month or $1,000 a month that it'll cost if they raise interest rates. And they did it, and I'm safe, and there's a lot of people bitching right now. And I say the same thing here about spinsters. Get yours. Have fun with the young girls, play around with the old girls, realize if she's over 30, chances are she doesn't want to settle down or she's not capable of settling down. That's the other thing. Nobody ever knows why these numbers are going up. Is it because they can't settle down because men are checking out? Maybe. Maybe, though, it's because they don't have the skills that they need to settle down. Be pleasant, be charming, learn to cook, don't be fat, all those different reasons. Stop sucking random dicks when you're with your boyfriend, shit like that. So there's a reason in there, and I don't know, but you will, because you're single, you're going and playing the field right now. You find out yourself. You start dating girls over 30, if you find out they're just mentally stunted, then maybe that's the case that, the reason why you want to date younger women is because they still have potential. Workforce does it. They don't like hiring 50-year-olds for new startups. They like hiring 20-year-olds because they have potential. Hot wives are the next generation of leftist men. I'm Canadian. Government employees make the new leftist men. That's the weirdest thing about here. 30% of Canadians are in government employment, and government employees are the ones that are driving the Liberal Party of Canada. So that's interesting. So you look at this stuff, and it's not me so much telling you how to interpret this data. It's showing you a different way of looking at it. I hate statistics for that. Somebody will look at this data and these statistics and use it to drive home whatever their ideological point is. It's something that they want to be true. They talk about the shoulds instead of the oughts. Christians will look at this and say, see, the devil made them do it. Feminists look at this and say, good, men ain't shit. Pickup artists will look at this and say, man, we got to get better at being attractive with ethical game because we're ruining the women for the pickup artists or whatever. I would say as a red pill guy, you look at this and go, dude, the amount of 30-year-old single women is off the charts. So in my 50s, if my wife acts wrong and decides to fly out of pocket and I leave her, I'll be swimming in girls 20 years younger than me. That's great. If you're some like red hawk Christian conservative person, you're like, well, dating my own age is probably not a good idea because they haven't settled down. And you can apply it to other things like virginity. I always love this. Everybody's like, I want a virgin. It's like, do you? Put aside the whole virgins don't know how to have sex thing. Let's just talk about it this way. You meet a virgin who's 18. Probably nothing wrong with her, right? Let's say you meet a virgin who's 28. What do you think of the odds that there's probably a reason that's not in your best interest that she's still a virgin at 28? Do you think women become virgins that late in life and not have a very solid reason for it? Religious gaslighting, family abuse, Uncle Touchy, complete disinterest in sex, a little bit of the old FGM, female circumcision stuff going on. Who knows? But again, you got to be careful when you say what you want out of life because there's always a reason for it. There's always a reason for this stuff, and the only way to know is to practice. So this is probably one of the reasons I don't like Dalrock stuff is because it's so statistics voted, or it's so statistically geared. And he does make conclusions of his own, but I like his conclusions where they're not so much what to conclude out of the data. It's showing you what other people are getting wrong about the data. And he's kind of been good at teaching me how to like hate statisticians. And I'm not a statistics guy. I know Wymore Please used to do that kind of stuff, data in his old studies, but yeah, most neurotic girl was a 30-year-old virgin. Oh, I have no doubts that's the case. Now, here's the thing. The only thing I wish I could do is I see his thing here, but I'm not good at pulling the data, and I really don't have the wherewithal, and it's kind of outside my thing, but I would love to take this chart and move it ahead the next 10 years to see how these have changed. Is it gotten worse? Is it gotten better? Has it stayed just about the same? At the end of the day, I'm like, I don't really care. This is not for me. This is for you guys. I got plenty of enough stuff to talk about. Dread and Frame take up more than enough of my time that I don't have to worry about fucking statistics. But yeah, so for you, do you see things? If you're dating 10, 20 girls, you have a bit of a sample size. Is this pairing off? Is this looking about right in your world? Is this looking wrong in your world? Absolutely test it for yourself. I think that's the worst thing ever is that people listen to one asshole running his mouth about this stuff, showing you a chart, didn't show you how he got the numbers, and then telling you how to live your life. That's that Alex Psych guy. I fucking hate that shit. No, look at it in your life. Is this what you're noticing? Is this what Rob sees? When he's dating girls in their 30s and he's in his 50s? Is this what Jack is seeing with his 20-year-olds? Is this what Allie's seeing with her and her husband and her friends? I love how Uncle Touchy sounds like an 80 kids toy. Yeah. All right, we're on the next one now. So before we get there, let's have some fun.
Boom, what's up fam? Got some big news to share that unfortunately is not so good. So I'm gonna jump right into it. You're gonna watch this video and you're gonna cry. At least we can laugh at your eyes as you cry like in the corner like a little girl in the fetal position.
One of the guys who ran the Red Pill channel sent me a message. I actually appreciate that you took it from an idea-based perspective instead of ever resorting to personal attack. Like, if this movement is actually going to be dangerous, do we need to understand it so that we can take it down? I knew going into it that this might be a hot mess. I'm not going to have those guys back on my channel again. Absolutely not.
Yes, I'm aware. Just say boobs. Just say wood. Let's move on. Where's the timestamp on this one? 109. Is frivolous divorce overstated in the manosphere? Here's my correction. So yeah, you see December 20th, 2011 manosphere reference. I'm like, That kind of lines up with my 2012 thing, but it's not 100% accurate. So I should probably say 2011. But yeah, the Mother Jones article was 2012, but it was like February, I think it was. So it's all around this same time that the manosphere got created as a psyop to vilify men by turning us into a collective, like fucking communists. So he's making a reference here. Susan Walsh. Here's one thing I don't know, but I'm going to look up. Is that Susan Walsh who I think it is? Born in 1960, disappeared July 16th, 1996. Oh. Wait, is that the right one? Or is this Matt Walsh's wife? Does anybody know? I already put the Tate one on right at the beginning. Grim Reaper comment about frivolous divorce. Yeah, you guys know this one. The fact that guys are blindsided by it and girls plan earlier. Susan's like, give me stats or shut up. Again. Well, how about if women get to eat first at the table, they can set the place for men and serve them there. Irrational anger is the only response. This is why you shouldn't argue with women about this stuff. And this is the funny part too. So if you read Practical Female Psychology, which came out in 2008, if I'm not mistaken, you'll notice that Dalrock actually brings up the same thing. The betification of men process that I was talking about before. He just words it slightly differently, and this is what I love about the red pill is when you see convergent evidence. It's a bit of a digression here, but focus me. So you'll see, again, push for commitment, get what they want, lose interest in sex, become attracted to somebody else, start cheating, become angry and resentful, tell the partners they need the airtime, blame the partner for the behavior, and eventually leave. Right there. That is very similar to the betification process. So instead of pushing for commitment, he misses the initial part, which is like the testing the male for fitness phase. Push for commitment. They get him to open up, get the validation. They get what they want. And this right here, putting him to work phase. He gets these stages. Like this is actually one stage. This is the evolutionary selfishness. Losing interest in sex, pushing back, nothing's ever good enough, whatever. And then this here is the self-determination, where they start to secure a new mate. So that's what I love here. So you get guys like Dalrock doesn't read David, Claire, or Franco. He doesn't care about any of that shit. But from a completely different avenue, him looking up statistics and marriage patterns over time and the Christian way of dealing with it and other bloggers, he comes to the same conclusions that David Clare does and Franco. And so that kind of lets you know, okay, there's something about this. Now, they may not be refined. We might find out in a later case that Dalrock's not right. He's missing some stuff. Maybe Claire's missing some stuff. But generally speaking, they're both fuzzily on point. And then as these things evolve, these things get more refined. Maybe you'll find a third guy out there who has a reference to something. And that's what I love. Men swapping notes. When you get men swapping notes, you get examples of convergent evidence. And when you get examples of convergent evidence, you're going to find, more often than not, the things you find out are right to a point. And the issue isn't that they're right or wrong. It's that they need refinement. And this is why I cannot stand White Claw Power Hour bullshit, because they are wearing this process as a skin suit. And it's taking valuable time and valuable men away from more notes. Like, I'll tell you right now, the red pill space hasn't come up with anything useful since like 2017. Not because there's nothing useful to discover, but because everybody's busy being a fucking clown on Instagram. Yeah. Anyways, back to this. So the women sometimes responded with a kind of counter manipulation. They thought if they were cold and treated their husbands terribly, the men would leave or ask them to leave. Sometimes this happens, which incidentally explains why divorce initiation statistics can be misleading. A significant portion of the roughly 30% of divorces which are formally male-initiated result from the wife deliberately maneuvering her husband into taking the step. That sounds familiar. It should, because I think it was 2014. Rollo came out with that article, Please Break Up With Me. And the Married Red Pill in 2016 came out with Killing the Puppy. It's the same thing. Well, women initiate 70% of divorces. Yeah, and women were cunts for the other 30%. Men in general don't leave their women unless the women give them a very good reason to. We are fiercely loyal in that way. We are stupidly loyal in that way. So something to think about. Is frivolous divorce overstated? They're always frivolous. I think he gets about here where he talks about I'm not happy either. I mean, I can't remember. It's been a while. Women initiators, even the husband files. 5 years, 2K. Okay, so it's an example to drive home the point. And then, where's the one I'm looking for? And this ties into Threatpoint, where they talk about the results are consistent with the hypothesis that filing behavior is driven by self-interest at the time of divorce. And that was the idea that Dalrock had. Okay, so if it's self-interest at the time of divorce, at certain age groups, who benefits? And you can go back to Rollo's SMV chart he has. You know the one where girls peak at like 20 and then drop off the cliff, aka the wall, when they hit 30. Meanwhile, guys don't really hit their stride and peak until like 35, and then it's a slow decline afterwards. So that lets you know if divorce was happening earlier, it would be more beneficial to the women, which means even if women weren't initiating divorces, they were encouraging their men to do that by acting like absolute bitches. If it was later on in the process, then it would be beneficial to men. Therefore, men are most likely the ones initiating, or at least benefiting by it. Yeah, there's periods in which each spouse benefits from honoring the agreement more than the other one does. And that's when he looks like, okay, let's look into it. He looks at England, Wales, divorce rate by age of the woman, and divorce rate by age of the men. You can't just do like a straight up chart because men and women aren't married at the same ages. They don't always marry when they're both 18. So you have to separate them by gender, which most people don't do. The fact that he did here was pretty impressive. But yeah, so you look at the divorce rate. Again, the divorce rate is primed at the under 30 demographic. Do you guys remember that epiphany phase of Rollo? Where it's like women at 25 to 29 start to have baby rabies, or 28 to 32, the epiphany phase. You notice this? They're having fun, playing around, divorce the guy during the baby raby phase because they want to find a guy to settle down with. In the US, same thing. Men would be getting divorced at about 35 then. Divorces would be happening here if it was a case that men were leaving chicks for younger versions of themselves. What are they finding? The exact opposite. Guys are giving girls their peak fertility years. I gave you my best years. Remember that bitching? I gave him my best years and he left me. Well, it turns out guys are actually doing that. I've given you my peak years, madam. And all you have to do is not be a cunt. And the women are like, I'll think about it. I'll think about it. So when I talk about this stuff, I don't want to, who asked, blah, blah, blah. Okay, blah, 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 blah. I don't think there was anything more from that, no. So let's, you know what, let's just get rid of this. Let's just you and me talk at the end here. I don't think we need any stats to block the window. It's just you and me. Have a heart to heart. Man to man. Mano a mano. Mas a menos. Come see a come sa. So the takeaway from this stuff is frame. It really is fundamentally important, and it's hard. You can't market it that way because I can't draw the conclusion to work out, shave your balls, pick a nice cologne, be deliberate about your actions, tying it to that. But fundamentally, if you're one of those guys that lets life happen to you as opposed to living life according to your own best interests, these trends are important because this shows you what you're most likely to experience. If you just go and think, oh, whatever, I don't need to be good at this. I don't need to develop frame. I don't need to have game. I don't need to look good. I don't need abundance. I just need to be a good, loyal husband and a good job and a good wife. And then whatever happens, happens. Well, that's what's going to happen. Increasingly so. It might not happen. Nothing's ever 100%, but I just don't understand where, like, you only get one life. Why would you take chances like this? Other than laziness, because you know what I mean? Something as simple as working out and standing up for yourself can alleviate 80% of that. 80%. That's why I'm always focused on hit the gym, eat right, have some frames, have some boundaries. Boundaries and covert contracts are huge. Why? Because 80% of that is guys having covert contracts, getting resentful when they aren't filled out, not having boundaries and letting the women run roughshod on them when they don't even want to. That's the funniest part. The women don't even want to be cunty. There's not a woman on this earth who would not drop everything in her life to be with a top-tier man in her eyes and have him be fiercely loyal and love her till the day she dies. Not a single... I don't care who you are. You could be the cuntiest cunt ever. You could be Kate 2.0. You could be anybody. Nothing is going to stop a girl from wanting that. We're human beings. Everything else is cope. So when they're acting bitchy, when they're nagging, and when they want to cheat on you and all this stuff, there's something in there, in their mental hard wiring that's not helping. Like it used to. This is where I talk about the concept of sexual diabetes. And this is where the next point's going to be in.
Name a bigger red flag than a white guy with a podcast. I'll wait.
I am not impressed. I will have you know, I'm like 80% white. The podcast is goddamn good, and I don't want you anyway. You got random Iroquois art and not art on your walls. You're not my type, sir. Or madam. I don't know, you're allowed to say any more? Bless that mulleted man. Sexy bitch. Where was I going with this? Oh yeah, sexual diabetes. So I've talked about the concept before. I think I've written about it. I can't remember if it was in Fuck Files or Frame though. Is it bad when you can't remember what's in your books anymore? Like all the details? I guess that's why I wrote it down, so I wouldn't have to remember it. But sexual diabetes is where a previous instinct that used to serve a vital function in our lives no longer does it. Adapt or die kind of thing. And diabetes is a great example of what I mean. So in Paleolithic times, back when we were just cavemen or primates and whatever, living was hard. Calories were hard to find. Everything wanted to eat you. So if you used up too much energy, you would die. And we ended up developing certain evolutionary habits. The first one was a sweet tooth, because simple carbohydrates were great for energy. And that energy allowed us to hunt, which allows us to kill animals and eat meat and make houses and sleep with wives and all that. It was basically free calories for free energy. So people who were more addicted to sugar and simple carbohydrates were the ones that tended to survive, because they were sitting there chewing on bananas, while the guys that didn't like it would just die off because of lack of calories. Worked great until 1850 and industrialization happened. What happened there? We separated labor from productivity. It turns out our ability to get calories and our ability to expend calories no longer coincided. They weren't in sync. Now with a barrel of oil, we can fill 20,000 man hours, which makes a hell of a lot of sugar. So what happens is our technology is advancing at like year over year, but our evolved survival strategies are evolving eon over eon. So way faster, the amount of calories we can get versus the amount of calories we stop being enamored by. So what happens from that? You eat too much sugar. Body's not prepared for it. What does it do? Insulin shuts down, you get diabetes, and you die. So that's an easy way to understand it. Sugar, which used to be a survival instinct, is now killing us. And the same thing is happening when it comes to like our sexual strategies. It's sexual diabetes. This stuff all worked great when we were Paleolithic tribes going here, there, and everywhere. This stuff all worked great when we were an agricultural society. Everybody was a farmer. Everybody lived in rural areas. You needed lots of kids early on because you were bored and there was nothing else to do but have sex. And you needed those kids to help you on the farm. But now we're in an age where none of that matters. Productivity and labor are completely detached. You can get the strongest guy in the world. What's he doing? He's a bouncer at a bar and he's loading trucks. You get this weak, effeminate soy boy who's conflict averse. What's he doing? He's running $1 billion company. Productivity and labor are absolutely not attached at all. And then what's happening on that? Women can work, and they can work well, and they're effective, and even when they're not effective. But the point is, we're acting as if they are, and that's good enough for me. We can argue if they are or they're not. Save that for your little misogynistic white claw power hour. I don't care. Women are running shit right now. Women can earn their own things. Women no longer need provision because they can handle provision on their own. They're not doing the drudgery of labor because they have dishwashers and now they have corporate jobs. And now that all this stuff is here, well, what is it you want? Well, I want alpha fucks and beta bucks. I want a man who's like top tier genetics, socially above me on the hierarchy. Like all those physical desirable traits are there. What about the provision traits? Like, I can do that myself. A woman's corporate job is the vibrator for beta bucks. Just have it in her locker, pull it out every now and again, get that itch scratched. Which sucks for guys, because now we have sexual diabetes. We still think we're in the 1800s, and, you know, a good farming, strapping man who's willing to work hard and fight off bears and protect his family and provide is what women want right now. And some still do, but it's not even useful anymore. It's more of like wearing it as like a luxury brand. Like if you watch all of the trads who want to bake bread and cook, like what was that one chick? She called it fourth wave feminism. It's like feminism, but I bake bread and I'm a stay-at-home mom. I'm like, oh, fair enough. Can't wait for fifth wave feminism. Jesus. But yeah, like I don't need a man anymore. And so when she wants to be a stay-at-home wife, it's not because that's necessity. Because, oh, somebody's got to beat the clothes against the rock to get them clean. Somebody's got to raise all the kids and homeschool them. Somebody has to cook food while you're toiling the fields. They're doing it as a lifestyle choice. Right now, the stay-at-home mom is no different than furries. It's a lifestyle choice. It's a luxury brand that we can do because we can afford to. Women can afford to stay at home and do nothing because they're hot enough that they can find a man who will provide for her and do it. But she doesn't need it. It's not an attraction quality. It's a lifestyle choice. Oh, they might have been. I don't know. I'm reading Tully's thing here. So now that you know these things are all lifestyle choices, and this is, again, there's tons of spheres where this goes. Things that were absolutely essential end up turning into rituals, end up turning into like lifestyles, end up turning into social signaling. It's signaling theory. And as far as like red-pilled tendrils and what sciences they're attached to, Evo Psych and mate theory, I would argue signaling theory is really in there and it doesn't get enough love. So yeah, what's the point of this one? Sexual diabetes. So what does that mean? Well, that means you got to lean in on the attraction behaviors, the alpha fuck side, and not necessarily not do any of the provision side because the instinct is still there, but it's needed to a far less developed level in today's modern societies than you'd think. And now you can be one of those guys that's like, yeah, but when the zombies come, they're going to need a guy who can farm and still booze. And they're like, all right, maybe. But for hundreds of years, guys have been sitting here waiting for the apocalypse, prepping their whole lives around it. So far, not one guy has been right on their calls for apocalypse. So do what you got to do. Trad is trending. Women follow. That's what they do. Trad is a lifestyle choice, man. Trad right now is a lifestyle choice. What happened? San Francisco rich boys off of tech stuff are going to Stardew Valley and buy a farm. They're not traditional conservative. They're traditional conservative in the way Coke and Pepsi. Coke is the real thing. Pepsi's the real thing. Oh, that's all it is. So what's the point of this? What's the take home from the sexual diabetes side? You just got to understand the trends. So when people tell you things, don't worry about what they're saying. Worry about their attitude. Yeah, women love being submissive and they love being traditional. It's like maybe. But do you remember what we said earlier with the Dalrock's example of the Girl Scouts? When it was men letting them eat first, they were very passive when it came to the feminine imperative stuff. When things were going well for them in the equality side of the equation. As soon as you look for actual equality or even, heaven forbid, reciprocity, that's when the claws come out. So this stay-at-home mom thing sounds like a great idea. But then, what else was involved with being a stay-at-home mom? Well, they didn't have pregnancy tests back then, so you had to kind of date yourself a virgin. Well, no. I should be able to play the field and then be a stay-at-home mom. All right, fair enough. What about you cook and clean for me? No, man. I'm going to finger fuck this tablet. We should hire a maid. Do you know how many guys out there have stay-at-home moms that can afford it and then hire her a maid to make life easy for her? Like, it's fucking ridiculous. I still can't believe that. Oh, yeah, Stardew Valley was awesome. Doesn't mean I want to live it for myself. I went the opposite route. I was on a farm and I moved to the city. I'm never going back. Do you know how much hard work sucks? Do you know how much arthritis sucks? Never going back to the ranch, sir. Never. So we are going... So that's the takeaway. All of this stuff has nothing to do with real life. This is all choices. And women love equality when they're getting their side of the equation, and they will lash out against it emotionally when they're not getting their side. So here, you want your trad wife, you get your trad wife. Here's a little experiment you can run to see if I'm right or I'm just bullshitting you. Because I might be. You never know. I could just be a grifter. And all my haters is because they're making more money than me, and all that shit that haters say on Twitter is true. You find yourself a good stay-at-home mom, like in the cornfield with their ass hanging out like most traditional women are. Instagram in a cornfield, sun hat goddess, that kind of thing. Notice when you start doing your side of the traditional conservative stuff, they love it. Start putting some expectations onto her side of the traditional paradigm and see what kind of responses you get. Now, if you get a good girl, like say for Allie, stay-at-home mom, you make some fucking food. You know, you be loyal to me, do all the traditional stuff that you want out of a marriage. And if all of a sudden they start pushing back on that, realize that you're not there with an ally. You're there with somebody who's wearing trad as a skin suit. Always trust on actions. And it's weird. And so I'm going to end off on this, then we're going to do a little bit of bants, then we're going to switch over to the next one, which is Rule 0, which we're going to expand on this stuff with the whole panel, which would be nice. Where was I going with this one? Sexual diabetes. Oh, yeah. Actions always matter over this. So when you do these tests and you see if somebody acts the part and if they're willing to pull up any sacrifice when you're doing the expectations and they start acting right, that lets you know that you can try to take something as sincere. Now, my expectation is when you guys start doing this, you're going to find out that nothing is sincere. All of it is exactly like I've said. And that you think that you can just hold out and find that trad girl who's willing to do the thing, you're not going to find it. And you're going to end up angry. Most likely. You're going to be angry because you find out that all that stuff you believed in was a lie. And it sucks, but you kind of have to get there, man. You kind of have to get there. Parents buy you a pet so you can finally start to deal with death before grandmother passes away. Yeah, it sucks. The animals are dying, but you need to learn these lessons. Then, once you learn this, you learn, okay, so what I think is there is not there. What I think is a real life thing is really just a fantasy. So now that all of that is gone, what's left? And like I said, you learn to appreciate the woman in front of you for what she is, not what you want her to be. And if you can't appreciate her what's in front of you for what she is and not what you want her to be, then that ain't the one for you, bro. And if there's none of them that you can appreciate for what they are and what you want them to be, I would argue there's something defective with you. Because women were getting together, having families, staying together for a lifetime in like communist Stalin Russia. If they can figure it out, there's no way in fuck you with your Facebook and your TikToks and your red pill can't figure it out for yourself. But you just have to do it honestly with yourself. I would argue even the Allie thing, like with theirs, it's traditional stay-at-home wife. She has a YouTube channel. She's pulling in income. They have a dishwasher. She's not beating things against rocks and that. You're going to end up finding that if you want a life that you want, you're going to custom make your life built around what you want, what she wants, some measure of compromise between the two of you, because nobody's ever going to get 100%. Everybody gets like their 80, 90% of what they want, and then they kind of have to just give up on the 10%. That's just life. Like I said, Tate got to make a couple $1 million a month on Hustlers University, but then he has to go to Romanian prison and then do a trial for like a year. Price you got to pay, right? This sounds to me like soon to be over marriage. Oh, this sounds like my soon to be over marriage. Yeah. But yeah, get married, don't get married. I don't really care. Do what you want. Marriage is a bad deal for men. I don't know how many different ways I can say it. But that doesn't mean you have to sit there and be alone as a hermit. Don't be autistic. In this case, come up with your own system. Common law. Me and the girl. I think Patrice O'Neill called it the whatever you want it to mean ring. I definitely got her a like, this is what you want it to mean ring. She has a couple rings now and she's loving all the jewelry and all that shit. But yeah, it's like a... So that's it. Anyways, that's it for time. That's it for the episode. 133. Yeah, you know what? Whatever. We'll do a couple minutes of bants. And then on this channel is going to be Rule 0, where we are going over this stuff again, but with the Rule 0 crew. And I don't have to talk about it anymore, which is perfect, because when I host, I'm always so focused on making sure everybody else shines that I don't like talking on it. Which is always funny, because I see you guys in chats like, oh, I know what Ryan's going to say to this, and he doesn't say anything. You're like, what the hell? I'm like, yeah, dude, I'm busy. I can't sit here and talk about wham and ain't shit. What do we got here? Fourth wave feminism includes a podcast to stay on the market. Megan, savage, but where's the lie? Someone's taking a nap. I'm going to end it. Time to move on. Why did Richard Cooper jump ship? Was it political? Dude, that was like a year ago. Yeah, it was political. It turns out that Richard is a huge fan of Jagmeet Singh and the NDP, and the rest of us here are a huge fan of the Bloc Québécois, and it was just a political separation that we couldn't handle amicably, and so we had deathmatch. Like, fucking Billy. Here, I'm gonna... Every chat's always gotta have a Billy. Hey, what's this drama I invented? Is there something to this? Not really. Anyways, that's it for me.
I love the way girls smell. I love how they always make sure, by and large, they shower, and they just have an amazing smell to them in general.
T 2458 learning club Little Red Riding Hood, take one.